One of the most common challenges with getting into jazz piano is getting into the jazz groove, right? Because it's pretty specific in some ways, but at the same time, there's a huge leeway. So you might get somebody, like Oscar Peterson playing a certain way, and you might get someone like Bill Evans playing a very different way. And then someone like Wynton Kelly with Miles Davis playing somewhere totally different. And you can hear they all swing, they all have this dotted rhythm, but within that there's a big leeway. And actually, now that I'm on the subject, the Miles Davis album, Kind of Blue, can really illustrate this for you, because Wynton Kelly, who I just kind of imitated there, is the pianist on one track, Freddie Freeloader, and Bill Evans, who I played a little bit in that style before, is on all the other tracks, like So What, and All Blues, and Flamenco Sketches. So if you listen to that album, you'll hear that that one track, Freddie Freeloader, sounds completely different than anything else on the CD or download or whatever, because it digs in more. It's a little less, what's the word? It's a little less atmospheric, so to speak, and a little more grooving. And it's because of Wynton Kelly, his piano playing. He brought that to Miles's ensemble at the time in the late 50s. Bill Evans could swing with the best of them, but not quite in the same way. It wasn't the emphasis in his playing, especially on that album, because he and Miles Davis could see the album as something different. So that's a good illustration. Listen to Freddie Freeloader and then So What with Bill Evans, and you'll hear the difference there. So what about you, right? So I'm assuming that you can, you can play some jazz piano, or this is for you, and you want to get more into the jazz groove. And what I'm going to do is pick a hypothetical situation. So let's say you come from more of a classical background, but it could be anything. It could be rock, could be blues, could be pop. And but let's say you play some classical music, so you can get around the piano, and you're learning some jazz tunes, and you can play the chords, the melody, and you can already improvise, but you're not really in the sort of the inside of the jazz groove enough. So you might play something like this. Which sounds nice. That's an actual example. Someone asked me about. They play like that. It sounds beautiful, right? That's the thing. So there's two aspects to this. One is you don't have to change what you can already do. In fact, I would embrace that. You're doing things, if you can play like that, you're doing things that most jazz pianists get to later on. I mean, playing these kind of arpeggiated left-hand accompaniments. Because you've already developed your left hand, you've played your Chopin etudes, you know how to play all over the piano. So that's a good thing. So let's start there. Enjoy that while you're doing it. The other one is that you're playing with a beautiful, natural melodic sense and with some lyricism. And that's what people like Bill Evans did. So, someone could learn the jazz, spend 3 or 4 or 5, 10 years learning the jazz vocabulary, and then say, hey, I want to do that Bill Evans does, and I can't do that yet, especially on ballads. So you might play stuff like this. So the ironic thing is, if you can play sort of like that, and you still, you're thinking, oh, it's not real jazz, or it's not swinging enough, fair enough. We'll work on that in a second. But I want you to embrace that, because it's what a whole other segment of the jazz pianist population wants to be able to do, and you can already do it. So the first step in this is to just embrace what you can do, whether it's coming from a pop background, or maybe you're playing and it sounds a little too much like rock and roll, or whatever it is. Embrace that, because that's where you're at, and that's a style, and that's fine. That might be something that sets you apart once you learn more about jazz. Okay, so don't throw that out. You don't want to sort of become generic jazz piano student by following, I got to play my third and sevenths or A and B voicings, and I've got to do this, and I can't do all that other stuff. No, that's not good. Don't throw out what you can already do. You just want to add to it and then pick and choose in a way that you like. Okay? So enjoy playing like that too, because it's what you have to offer. All right. The second part, though, is yes. Maybe you'd like to swing a little more, and you don't really know how to do it. And what's holding you back is that you're already playing this whole concept. So even though that's beautiful, it's hard to maybe swing a little more while you're doing all that other stuff. So one great way to practice this is to isolate all the different elements. You can just play the melody alone and maybe use someone like Miles Davis, the trumpet player, as an example. And just pick one of his recordings from the 50s. That's where I would start. 1950s recordings. And you might do something like rest. Still feeling the groove. See what I mean? I can just focus on the groove like that. That's hard to do when you're doing all this other stuff. See, it kind of goes against that hard swinging, and getting into the chung, 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 that groove. The other way you can do it is to do just the walking bass line and pretend you're a bass player. Ba-doom, doom, doom, doom. Really get into that. Nothing else. Think about it. The reason trumpet players can swing like that is because they don't have all that other stuff. They just play the melody or improvise. Bass players are playing those bass lines, so they get really good at grooving within that. They're not worried about a whole musical texture. So then, maybe you could try those together. You see? So you're leaving stuff out that you can already do and simplifying the musical texture. That's one really good way to get more into the jazz rhythm and develop that over time. Then maybe someday you could bring that back, the other stuff. So you're saying, okay, well, I can play these complex left-hand things and these counter melodies, so maybe something like this. You can bring it back, or continue playing the way you already play sometimes, and just maybe go into the swing and out of it, like. So you kind of meld the two worlds together. Well, I hope that gives you some ideas on how you can practice in a way to get more of a jazz rhythmic feel that's inside the tradition, but without losing what you already can bring to the table. Have fun and enjoy every step of the process. It's a journey.